I remember when we were in the office, 18 of us, the first time we met as a church, and Ted and Lindsay were one of them. I mean, we were, so I was like 28, and man, I see some pictures sometimes, and Ted, I mean, he was in his early 20s, and to see, we had no idea what we were doing, but God did. And God brought together a few couples, and again, Ted and Lindsay being a part of that, and to see a shared conviction and passion, again, clueless on one level, but filled with certainty on another level, and who would have thought? So to meet Ted, I mean, there was such a kindred spirit of hearts for Christ, love for His Word, desire for prayer, just a pursuit of true humility. We had so many lessons we had to go through, and God ensured that happened. But I mean, to be joined together and then to be called together, man, that is beautiful. And then, we had this group of people in our church too, driving down from Brampton. And, that process in itself was a very interesting one. We were about, 1,100, 1,200 people at that time. I mean, a sizable church, but also in a vulnerable position. But then you start to see the need and the hunger and the desire for people to be fed in God's Word and to be filled with His Spirit, and then take that with a desire for evangelism and to see it multiplied. And it's just, there are certain things that God promises to bless, and that's really how this all began, and it's really why we continue to plant churches, and such a passion to see that grow in a day where has it ever been needed more, where we need more men and women to stand with conviction and boldness and resolve to say the gospel is the answer, and that's why we're doing what we're doing. Over time, it became very clear, and in Ted's heart too, you say, what makes a church planter? The number one thing is calling. I mean, you will not make it if you're not called. It was clear that Ted and Lindsay were called, and they had a burden to do this. And so talking with Ted and that whole process of seeing them equipped and prepared to see Harvest Brampton launch back in 2009. And when we did it, I remember the first Sunday that our Harvest Brampton people left, and I looked out on one particular service and I was like, what have we done? It was like, it seemed empty. I'm like, oh no, where'd everyone go? And I called planting that church with Harvest Brampton. It was one of the biggest steps of faith for me in my young ministry. And it was also, I called it a good hurt. It was so good, it's so right, but it hurt. Like there was a cost to it. And we had to put our faith in the Lord, not ourselves, and how God uses that time too to see Harvest Brampton. And now look at what's happened. Look how faithful God has been. And that's the vision we must never lose and hold on to say, you by faith move out to multiply what God will do and trust Him that all these things will be added unto you. And so seek first the kingdom 100%. And I pray Harvest Mississauga would be more than ever resolved to believe in that vision upon their church at this time. Think back of when you sent out, several dozen people from this church, and to see what God has done today, like that's such a rare thing in our day. And so Harvest Mississauga has to know how blessed they are. They have to know God's hand's been upon them through good times and bad. They have to know that what they are seeing is not normal. Because when I look upon it, even all that we've seen too, man, there are tears that quickly fill my eyes at God's grace. It's undeserved, but that's the point. And it's really in many ways unparalleled too. So how much more will God do? Oakville, Mississauga, Toronto North, an example of how Jesus Christ is building His church.